Okay, I want to mention like this. Number one, tonight, Tessa Darishan is the art site of Reb Chana ben Yaakov Alevi, who is Mr. Schwartz, who donated their house, an elm, that we got the shul project, Mamish kicked off the ground. So tonight's his yard site, and therefore, it says, I'll say Kaddish for him, but also tonight's learning and tomorrow's learning is dedicated in his memory. Harana ben Yaakov Alevi, 5 years. He didn't pass away in a leap year, right? Right here, okay. Okay, last night I wasn't here, but 2 nights ago we were learning
was it the guy
about the dinner milchiks. No. Dinner milchiks and fleishiks. You can't cook it, you can benefit, all the various different dinim. So I'll give you an example. A lady called me this afternoon with a shaila, and this will explain a din that we're going to be learning tonight. By mistake, they took a fleishik meat pot that wasn't used for a long time, and they cooked dairy. By mistake, somebody cooked milchiks, dairy, in that pot. So now the question is, can they eat the food? What's with the pot? What's the story? What's the halacha? So, again, we started learning it 2 days ago, but we didn't get far in this aspect. The din is, when you cook meat in a pot, okay, so the taste of the meat becomes absorbed within the walls of the pot. Therefore, then, when you cook milk in it, the taste of the meat comes out from the wall of the pot into the meat and into the milk, and therefore it makes it treif. And we learned it's not bottled the shishim because you have to count the whole area of the plate, right, and the pot or whatever it is, and you don't have 60 times the amount. But that din only applies if it's a fresh taste of meat in the pot. If it's a fresh taste of meat in the pot, then when the taste of meat comes out into the milk, then you have a taste of meat and milk together. But what happens if it's what's called in halacha pegam, it's blemish taste, meaning the taste that's inside the walls of the vessel are blemished. Al pidin minatayra, it's not treif. It's not called meat. Why? Because it's a blemished taste of meat. It's not a real taste of the meat. 1 second. So therefore, when it comes out into the milk, you don't have a mixture of meat and milk together. Now, according to halacha, when is something become what's called neising tam libgam, it gives a taste for a blemished taste, after 24 hours. Which means if a pot wasn't used, let's say this is a meat pot, and it wasn't, and you cooked meat in it, and it wasn't used for 24 hours, and then you cook milk in it, the milk is kosher. Now, what happens if you wait another 24 hours and cook meat in it? Again, the meat's going to be kosher, because all the tastes that are coming out are blemished. But that's minatayra. The Chachamim came along and said you can have one pot and use it every 24 hours. Why? Because you'll forget and you might use it within 24 hours. You don't know, you don't keep in mind exactly when you use the pot. So therefore, in this case, what happened over here, the meat pot, what the lady called me, the meat pot was not used for 24 hours. And it was clean for meat. Okay? Because if it was dirty, then you have substantial meat. It's much worse.
When does dirty meat become?
1 second. Dirty meat, never. Unless if it's burnt to the crisp, that it's not... No. Still tastes. Now, therefore, in her scenario that she called me today, the pot wasn't used for meat for 24 hours. Therefore, the milchik dish is fine, because there's no real taste of meat in the dairy because it's blemished. But the pot became treif. Because now the pot has meat in it, the pot has milk in it, and rabbinically you can't keep using the pot because it's still, even a blemished taste is only b'di'eved, not lechatchila, only passively, not to begin with. So therefore the din is, sounds crazy, the food is kosher, but the pot needs to be koshered. But you can eat the milk. You can eat the dairy products. Huh?
If it's cold meat, cold milk, you mean?
If it's cold milk and if the milk wasn't there for 24 hours, it's fine. Just rinse it out in cold water and it's fine. All of this going in and out is with hot. There is one exception. If somebody had in this pot cold milk, okay, and the milk was in the pot for 24 hours, not 23 hours and 59 minutes, mamish 24 hours at least, then it's what's called in halacha kavush k'mavoshel. If it's submerged in it, then it's like cooking it. That means if somebody takes cold milk and puts it in a pot and puts it in the refrigerator for 24 hours, a brand new pot, you just put milk in it for 24 hours, cold milk, that pot becomes as dairy as any other pot that you cook milk in. So again, in this scenario, the food is kosher because the pot wasn't used for 24 hours, and but the food is kosher. What?
You said a minute ago about the pot, places that it's not mavatal and shishim with the amount of milk in it. Why not? If it's a big pot, I understand that part.
The reason for this is, somebody asked this question 2 days ago. When you count the pot has meat in it from cooking, right? The walls have meat, yeah. Now, how much meat is there in the walls?
However thick the walls are.
We don't know.
Like
Okay, so therefore, what's the halacha? Every part of the pot, top, bottom, side, is all counted as it's a piece of meat.
Okay.
You're not going to have 60 times inside. Unless if you have a very long pot that has very small walls and you fill it up with a lot of food, yeah, then it's possible you'll have 60 times the amount. But halacha, practically speaking, it's not going to be. Halacha is just practically speaking, it's not going to be.
If it's on the pot that doesn't have food in it.
It doesn't matter. If it's metal, there's a rule, cham miksasi cham kuli. If part of it gets hot, the whole thing is hot. So therefore, the taste goes all over the place. So therefore, technically, what happens if somebody had hot chicken soup cooking, and by mistake, they took a dairy spoon to mix the chicken soup. Which happens by mistake, the housekeepers, whatever, people do it. The husbands do it, the kids do it. 3 big problems in the house, kashas, housekeepers, husbands, and kids. I don't know which order is worse, but they're all pretty bad. So what happens if somebody, here you have this is a meat pot, it's cooking chicken soup. Somebody takes this spoon, which is dairy, and mixes the chicken soup. Now, if the spoon was used, let's make it easier. If the spoon wasn't used for 24 hours from dairy, then there's no problem. The soup is kosher because it's a blemished taste coming out from the spoon into the meat. The spoon has to be kosher because if it's kosherable, because it's a dairy spoon now that has meat in it, right? But what happens if the spoon was used within 24 hours for hot milk? So now when it comes in, you're stirring the soup, right? So now you have a fresh taste of milk in the chicken soup. So over there the din is, if the soup is 60 times the size of the spoon, that means you have a big pot. Because if you have a little pot, a little quart pot, and you have a spoon, let's say a bigger spoon, you're not going to have 60 times the amount. Then if you don't have 60 times the amount, the soup is treif, the spoon is treif, and the pot is treif.
We're talking volume, right?
Volume.
So the whole volume of a spoon is probably a quarter cup. I mean, it's not a half a cup at the most.
Okay, so how many cups are in a quart?
I don't know. 4.
2 cups in a pint.
Okay.
2 pints in a quart. There's 4 cups in a. Let's use your example. There's 4 cups in a quart. Now a spoon is a quarter of a cup.
Right. It's far from 60. Right?
Far from 60.
Right.
So you see, it's not. If you have a big commercial, even in the house, if you have a big pot and but that's even if the spoon is clean, if it's within 24 hours. Now there are opinions in halacha that most people halachically don't rely on, but believe it or not, the kashrus organizations do rely on it. And that is, they do two things. Number one, there's an opinion in halacha that says that to make it blemished, you don't need 24 hours. Overnight is enough to make it blemished. It's called linas laila. That's enough to make it blemished. Then other opinions say, and generally speaking, that's not an accepted opinion. Then there's another way, if you blemish it, what happens if you put some detergent in it? And therefore the detergent blemishes the taste that's in the pot, so then they say that's good enough as if it's not, that it's a blemished taste and it's not a fresh taste.
Why would that be a bad thing? It actually makes a lot of sense.
No, it doesn't. Because according to halacha says 24 hours, it's 24 hours. But I'll tell you where the issue is. We learned already in Hilchos Pesach, we're not going to elaborate on it now. But in order to kasher a pot, when you want to kasher with agola, boiling hot water, so what you're doing basically is, through the high heat, you're spitting the taste out of the wall. The problem is the taste, after it spits out, the heat's going to make it go back in. Just so you went out, now that it's done spitting out, it's going to go back in. And it's a non-blemished taste. Right? So then you need 60 times the amount, which you don't always have. So therefore, for Pesach, the din is anything you want to kasher with hagola, with hot water, you need to wait. We're going to elaborate more as we learn more. Then you need 24 hours. 1 second. But the question is, so companies, kosher products, they don't have their own companies. They go into a treifa company. They kasher, like even Chol Yisrael, most places in New York, J&J has its own farm. Golden Flow one time has its own farm. Okay, whatever. Some people have, so they never have to kasher. But if you have a non-Chol Yisrael farm and you want to kosher Chol Yisrael, so, and how do you kasher? With hot water. You don't kasher with a blowtorch. You kill the machine. So how do you kasher? With hot water. But the question, do you have 24 hours? Because they maybe, like during the day they worked, then they let you clean the machine, and the next morning you're going to have to do the milking to make it Chol Yisrael to pasteurization, but they're not going to give you a whole 24 hours of them not working in the treifa plant, right? So therefore, so what do the companies do sometimes? Some of the companies, they wait overnight, plus they put in detergent that blemishes the taste, and they rely on that. All the big kashrus organizations rely on that.
Why
Bottom
is
line.
detergent you saying not a good idea?
Because again,
Seasoning food.
okay, let me ask you a question. Okay, go off topic. Can you convict a person in murder with DNA?
Halachically?
Yeah.
No.
Why not?
Torah says you need to wait.
But come on, it's factual. I'm asking you a question. That is your logic. Torah says 24 hours. Yes? Okay. You want to come up with a new brainstorm, I'm going to blemish it by putting detergent in it.
Shouldn't work. So that shouldn't be it shouldn't be a thing.
But there is an opinion, hopefully, in the slide. There are opinions, but it's not the accepted.
I was saying the purpose of the 24 hours.
I understand. But again, the purpose of witnesses is to verify something happened. Why isn't DNA a good thing to show that it did happen? No, so I'm saying that's not necessarily the way Torah works. But it's not so simple. Some people want to say DNA does work in halacha. It's a whole very controversial issue today of convict. Well, today we don't have capital punishment anyway, so it's not relevant. But the question would be, is DNA? So the same thing. What the Torah says, Neis and Tam Lebgam is after 24 hours. That's what Shulchan Aruch says. The Rabbi Yosef, the Ramah, the Tur. That's what they write. So all of a sudden you want to come and change it. What?
So I was going to ask, in the first case, the pot is not kosher, but the milk is edible because it's 24 hours.
Right.
What if you use it again another time for milk? Use it, would that be okay?
Yeah, the milk would still be good because still for meat it wasn't used for 24 hours.
So you're not going to cut before you kosher it.
Right, okay. It's like, tomorrow we'll continue. This is a lot of issues. In fact, somebody called me about that today. They moved into an Airbnb, okay? And something hot touched the tray for counter there. Does their pot become treif? So we'll discuss it. The truth is, between the guy living there and the Jew moving in, it was 24 hours. So even if it was treif, it's blemished. So the pot doesn't become treif. These are all very practical dinim in kitchen.
Yes.
Glass is machlekes, but yeah.